we come to Eric Erickson. He developed the psychosocial development. He is the only person after Piaget and all that. He developed what we call a lifespan or developmental psychology. But then notice that most of the theorists, or most of the researchers we discussed, they all have the credentials like PhD, full professor, that type of thing. And quite oddly, Erickson never went beyond high school. Yet he made it all the way up the academic ladder to a professorship at Harvard. Can you believe that? Okay. Now, because he lacked formal training, he's not so devoted to the usual academic traditions in psychology. However, this is good because his point of view is quite universal, mixing Freudian language with anthropological considerations. Some may regard his orientation as more philosophy than science, but unlike others who have wandered away from psychological science toward philosophy, okay, some of Erickson's concepts have received significant scientific support. So you see, he is so unusual. He never went beyond high school, but of course, he received special training. I will come to that very soon. And he was a loyal follower of Freud. And at some point in time, he belonged to Freud's inner circle because of Freud's daughter, Anna Freud. Okay? But then, anyway, despite his devotion to Freud, his basic concepts are highly original and drawn from the common language, because of he's not trained in an academic in psychology. Okay? So his common language is rather than he drawn from common languages rather than psychological or jargon. So this inclination makes his ideas not well related to most of the other theorists' concepts, because of he's not an academic in psychology. So his most creative idea, one for which he will always be known, is the identity crisis. I will spend time on this later on. Okay? It is the vehicle upon which he wrote into a personality territory that was virtually unexplored by other theorists, including the famous Gordon Allport. Right? Now, so it was Erickson more than anyone else who popularized the idea that personality development does not end with adolescence. So it was Erickson, in contrast to other theorists who detailed personality development during the adult years. Right? And then later on, you will see that Erickson elaborated the 3 stages of adult development. So he's considered to be a lifespan psychologist. okay, despite his lack of credential, lack of a PhD. All right, now back into 1927, if I remember correctly, Anna Freud asked what Erikson if he would be interested in becoming a child analyst. Now, even though Erikson was unfamiliar with this new specialty, he was intrigued, thoroughly intrigued, and he agreed to undergo training analysis with Anna Freud. So very soon, and he was drawn into Freud's inner circle. All right, so that is Erikson. Now here, after he left Germany, he came to the States. Okay, and then he specialized in child psychiatry, or also being a therapist, right? And by 1960, he was so well known and respected that he was appointed professor of human development and lecturer in psychiatry at Harvard. It is then considered to be an extraordinary development in view of his non-existent academic credentials, no PhDs. Right, so so that is really remarkable, isn't it? Okay, so this is Adler's concept of striving from inferiority to superiority. Because Erikson was never comfortable at Harvard, knowing that all of his next door neighbors like Skinner and Gordon Allport, all those famous names. So he admitted that he was not comfortable sitting among those luminaries, right? So Erikson was very humble, okay, very humble, yes, very, very bright. Okay, so Erikson, he was loyal to Freud, okay, and there is no question whatsoever he is devoted to Freud. I haven't read everything Freud wrote, including even his correspondence, right? And then Erikson could not resist citing Freud at every possible opportunity. Okay, he considered Freud to be a great leader, right? So he's very good, okay? And he felt obligated to dig in for seemingly appropriate citation of Freud with each mention of his own original ideas, Erikson's own original ideas. Now, in fact, people have observed that he was in the habit of giving Freud credit for some of his own personal ideas that can be traced to Freud only with considerable stretch of the imagination. Right? Now take a look at Erikson's theory as a whole, okay? And you will learn his theories later on, okay? Remember Freud's central idea is sex, okay? Sex and libido, sex energy, psychosexual development. Erikson, on the other hand, de-emphasizes sexual motivation in favor of the quest for identity. Okay, Freud's unconscious takes the backseat to the ego, which in Erickson's hands becomes molded into a form of the self. Okay, self. The superego becomes more the conventional conscience, our conscience. Okay? So he was more concerned with people's mission in life as it evolves through the lifespan than their struggles with unresolved traumas of childhood. Remember, Freud used to say, the child is the father of the man. And if you understand what the person's childhood, you understand perfectly the adult character or the adult personality. All right. So in short, despite the homage frequently paid Freud, Erickson's point of view is highly original, okay? Totally original, okay? So let's take a look at what Erickson's psychosocial stages of emotional and personal development. So somehow his theory and his theories are also considered by personality theorists. All right. So take a look here. So from birth to 6 years, this is called childhood. But then later on, he will divide that into several stages. Okay, take a look at childhood. The first, birth to 2 years, that is infant. 0 to 2, that Piaget's sensory motor, and Freud's oral stage. So this is this is a stage of trust versus mistrust, and the resolution of these two opposite poles resulted in hope. What is hope? An outlook on life. Whether life is seen as predictable, orderly, as a result of trust, or suspicious, fearful of its unpredictability as a result of the development of mistrust. All right, during the infancy, remember Piaget's sensory motor, and also the brain, the infant's brain is not well formed at that time. And remember we discussed the sensory pursuit. The child will follow moving objects 50 times, 100 times, because each time is considered to be new, because memory traces cannot be formed at such a young age, right? But then, as the child grows, as the infant, the baby, I love the name baby. Anyway, as the baby grows older, remember what Piaget mentioned, object permanence. That means people exist even though they are gone, even though the infant cannot see them. For example, young baby, when after feeding, breastfeeding, put the baby back onto the crib, and the mother leaves the room. Most of the time, the baby will cry, mother! Because at that time, the baby thought that mother would never return, disappear out of sight, out of mind. But then, very soon, after a lot of experiences with this here, the infant realizes that, mother I cannot see mother. Mother is gone. But then she will come back later on. Okay? So that what? That here, that will what? Introduce what? The formation of trust. So the baby what? The baby kind of what? Trust. Okay? That mother will what? Will return. So the outlook here, the outlook on life is what? Predictable, orderly. Is that right? Mother's gone, but don't worry, she will come back. Okay, she will come back. Okay, so here, but then if somehow the mother is not what is not a trustworthy person, forgets about the baby, or some mother will leave the baby in the car during what hot summer day, that type of thing. That the child what will develop a sense of mistrust, suspicious, fear of unpredictability. I have no idea if mother would come back or not. All right. So here, infancy. This is a stage of total dependence on what? On the primary caretaker. Of course, most of the time is the mother. Okay, primary caretaker. So here, the positive outcomes will be the infant's what? Need for nourishment, care, familiarity are met. Parental responsiveness and consistency will contribute to a sense of trust. So great emphasis is placed on the need for affectionate physical contact and comfort during feeding and other child rearing activities. Now, recent research studies have indicated that it is a very, very good idea for the parents to take off their clothes when holding the baby, to allow for skin-to-skin contact. Okay, and with lots of research studies have been done in this regard, knowing that will give the baby comfort, as well as giving the parents even more comfort. Okay? Now, and hence providing emphasizing imparting a sense of trust to the baby. And also, I mentioned that if the parents make skin contact with the infant, positive effects, of course, on both, but more so positive effects on the parents. Okay? It's like this. When say when you hug somebody, I mean a real hug with love, the person being hugged will feel comfortable, feel loved. But then without realizing that it is you, when you hug someone, the positive effect will be more for you and more on you than on the one being hugged. You see my point? Okay? Now, from this perspective, we will have to look at sometimes the positive psychology. We can actually act, and then we act, we take initiative, and we will be benefited. We receive all the benefit of all our positive moves. All right. Now, so object permanence, that is an important concept. Most babies will develop this here, okay? So that what leads to what the development of trust. So it is very important for parents to what? To realize that predictability and then orderliness, they are very important in the child's life, okay? So here, the great emphasis I mentioned again is what plays on feeding, sucking, biting, drooling. That is the quality of nurture, the quality of care, and what affection that go into feeding, cuddling, bathing, and dressing the child. All this will what help the child to develop what feelings of trust or mistrust. Is that right? So Erickson stresses the need for affectionate physical contact and comfort during what feeding, like the warmth, the care, the skin to skin rubbing, okay, and other child rearing what activities. For example, of course, breast milk is far more preferable than what formula. Formula, the baby is sucking up what a rubber or synthetic materials, that right? But then in breastfeeding, the baby is in contact with what? Mother, is that right? Contact with mother's skin, okay? Now, so failure to provide one nurturance and care and warmth could result in physical death or psychological death, manifested in the form of what emotional withdrawal from the world and depression. And we have what? We have a lot of experiments to prove that this is the case. Let's take a look at what Harlow back in 1962. Harlow and Harlow, husband and wife. Remember Harry Harlow? He was the PhD supervisor of Abraham Maslow. Okay, and because no one wanted to take in a Jewish student, right? So at that time, an anti-Semitism was very strong in New York. All right, look at one. Remember, we already discussed this, but take a look here. Of course, here there were a series of experiments. Okay? But take a look at this one here. Research on surrogate mothers. Okay? Monkeys were raised by two types of substitute mothers. No real mothers are found here. Okay, a warm, soft cloth one versus a cold, harsh wire one. Both can provide milk in this particular experiment. Then Harlow observed the following: the baby monkeys, they were able to explore strange and terrifying situations, demonstrated an ability to master their environment and able to mate. Okay. However, those monkeys raised by the cold, harsh, the wire mother, they were mostly unable to relate to strange or novel objects. They would not approach a strange object or novel object. They manifested behavior reminiscent of schizophrenia, and they were unable to mate. They were unable to mate. So you see here, this one here demonstrated the importance of care, the importance of what? Importance of what? Affectionate physical contact and comfort, right? So it is advisable, strongly recommended that that the mother or the parents take off their clothes whenever possible when they are holding the baby. Skin to skin contact is excellent for the baby and even far better better for the baby and excellent for the parents. Okay. All right. So that's one. Birth to 2 years at Piaget sensory motor voice oral. Oral means what? Here, that everything is what related to what nutrition, right? All right. From 2 years onward, this is the toddler. Okay, the toddler. Autonomy versus shame. The resolution of the two opposite poles will result in what Emerson called will, a state of initial independence. Now, take a look at positive outcomes here. The greater control of self in the environment. Self-feeding, like toilet training, dressing, parental reassurance, availability of the parent, avoidance of overprotection. So overprotection is not good, okay? Because what? That will hamper the sense of autonomy. Is that right? So there must be a balance, okay? There must be a balance. So here, the autonomy here is what? It stresses the development of self-control and self-confidence based on encouragement, as well as limit setting without rejection and blame for failure to meet demands. So that is to say, do not reprimand the child too much. Okay? Too much here in order to encourage what? Encourage self-direction, independence, individuality, and also the beginning of a sense of identity. Now, autonomy here means the growing sense of self-control, self-assertion, perhaps we could put it that way. I can do it myself. So that is to say, at this age, at this stage, the child is a doer, able to control and affect the environment. Okay. Now here at this age, the child can crawl, walk, run, and climb. Physical maturation enables them to explore into almost everything. So that's why it is important. Remember after the acquisition of language, after the child could walk, an explosion in language acquisition. But let's talk about the walking. Walking enables the child to explore into almost anything. Okay. They also learn how to control their bowel, control their bladders. Therefore, the positive aspect of this period is a fundamental sense of self-direction. Okay, I can do it. Okay, I can do it. I'm able to control this. I'm able to affect the environment. Therefore, impart a sense of autonomy. Okay, so it is good. But then, however, excessive punishment for exploring the house or neighborhood, harsh and punitive about training and overprotection will impart a sense of shame and doubt of an individual's adequacy. All right? So now, however, during this time, 2 to 3 years, sometimes a little bit say older than 3 years. So what I'm going to say will be from 2.5 to about 4 years. Okay, so it overlaps this stage. Okay, so here's a stage called negativism. You must have heard of terrible 2 or terrible 3. This is a stage called negativism by Bert Norton White. Remember what the Stanford psychologist who wrote the famous book, The First 3 Years of Life. Okay? So negativism, what is that? Most parents recognize this term. Okay, this is I'd say that the child is the child is horrible, or the toddler is horrible. My God, what is negativism? Now the child, now from what the sensory motor to about 3 years old, the child is what, or the baby is a toddler is adorable. It is more amicable, beautiful. It is what? It is definitely an angel, a tiny little angel. Okay? But then, after what? After the child begin to pick up language. Remember, after the toddler means the toddler here means the child could walk. And the next big thing is what? Explosive in language acquisition. Therefore, the child here, the toddler, gains a sense of what? Individualism. Oh, there is something called I and something called they. And I am different from they are. So then the child will begin to assert what? Individualism. So before that, when mother says, my love, it's time to go to bed, the baby will what? The baby will just suck what their thumb and then go nicely to sleep. During terrible three, the child said, no. My mother says, go to bed now. No. Put that down. No. Don't do this. No. Okay. Don't walk there. No. This is called negativism. Okay. This is what Dr. No at work. Right? So here it is very difficult to deal with toddler at this age. As a matter of fact, all of us, we have gone through this stage. There are basically 3 stages of negativism. So allow me to go on with this. The first stage, terrible 3. Okay, first time the child understands there is a me. Child likes to assert his or her individuality. I want to do this. You don't tell me what you want me to do. I tell myself what I want to do. That type of thing. The second stage of negativism occurs at around for girls a little bit earlier than boys, because boys were mature a little bit later than girls. All right. So I think it is around 16 now, because of what we eat, most of the meat we eat, they have excessive growth hormones. So therefore, young girls as young as 9 years old now, they can have their first period. Usually it was 14, 16. So the second stage of negativism is called the rebellious stage or rebellion. Okay, that is also what we will discuss this later on. The first stage of detachment. Okay, the first stage of detachment, detached from the parents, detached from the family. That is to say, outside friends are far more interesting, far more, how should I say, far more important than family members. Okay, so then then at this stage called adolescence, the stage of adolescence, we will come to that. Then the negativism here is that adolescents at this stage tend to rebel against their parents. Okay, whatever the parents tell them not to do, they would do it. Don't smoke, and they go out and together with the gang gather together in front of the convenience store. They smoke and they do all sorts of things. The parents have warned them not to. This is the stage of negativism, very difficult to deal with. Okay, I'm very sure most of you are 20, 21, okay, or 19. Some of you, okay, you must have just emerged from this second stage of negativism. Okay, all right, it is important. So whoever you play with, they have excessive influence on you. Okay, if you stick with a group of people that are good, so good, you become good. If they are bad, you are bad. Okay. Now, the last stage of negativism for human development will be for women. It is at the menopause. Okay, for men, it's around 50. Okay, this is called what? What is it called? Say craziness. Is that right? Middle age crazy. Okay. Now, for women, because of menopause, they their body is no longer flushed with estrogen. So they lose women lose their firmness, okay, in the muscle. They lose they lose interest in in sex, and then they experience different health problems, and they begin to lose bone mass, right? So that's because of estrogen. For men at that time, most uh, most men at that time, they are financially stable. Okay, but then they wanted they wanted to feel young again. Okay, so you see a lot of them, they leave their wives, and then they find new love, younger love. Okay, yeah, it was at this stage of middle age crazy. There are several movies on this here. Okay, you think one of them is very good. An old movie. Peter Chow is an old guy, okay, by Anne Margaret, I think, and James Stern, or I can't remember. It's about middle age crazy. The husband was 50 some years old, just to prove his sexuality, to prove his manliness. Okay, he bought a Porsche. Okay, and he met a beautiful much younger beautiful women, that type of thing. Okay, so that's the last, our third negativism. Most of us, we go through these three stages, right? So that's one, negativism. So when we discuss positive psychology, we should understand development, human development, and that factor into whatever we learn from human development into positive psychology, then will be far more successful. Successful in discussing it, successful in building measurement scales to measure any entities, any topics in positive psychology. All right. Okay. Early childhood, 3 to 6 years old, that coincides with Piaget's intuitive or pre-operational stage at Freud's phallic stage. And this is also the onset of uh, explosive language acquisition. Right? Freud's phallic stage. So therefore, you understand why why the child is preoccupied with what? With bathroom languages, preoccupied with what? With the phallic, that type of thing. Anyway, let's take a look here. So here, 3 to 6 years old, here we have what? Initiative versus a sense of guilt. The resolution of the two polar opposite poles will result in what? Purpose, a sense of healthy purpose, the growth of creativity, or of course, or what they're opposite. Right? So now let's take a look here. The pursuing what? Initiative here, pursuing activity for its own sake, learning to accept without guilt that certain things are not allowed, imagination, play acting, adult roles. You often will see that one among kids 3 to 6 years old. Testing of personal power through exploration and manipulation of the environment based on encouragement and tolerance rather than overprotection from parents or punishment for exploration. So here, the attempt to do things by themselves for the sake of being active and on the move. Okay? And they want, at this age, they adore heroes, doctors, firemen, truck drivers. They like to help. For example, passing tools to what? To the father who's working on what? The lawnmower. Then they are highly responsible. When you tell them to do this, they will do it. Okay? They will do it. Now, but then what? When the father is working on it's trying to what? Trying to restart the lawnmower and what? Trying to take it apart. The child at this age is likely to want to help, pass on tools and all of that. Okay, so then what? Then a good father or an understanding father will say, "Oh, thank you so much. You just what? You just passed the right tool to me. You are so good, my boy. You're good." That type of thing. Okay, and the child likes it. Okay, this is an encouragement to what? Encourage them to take initiative. Okay, to take initiative. Now, play is an important form of initiative. Okay, pretend games are common. Okay, like role play. Okay, they want to play. Oh, I'm the policeman. That type of thing. Okay, so Erickson calls this period what? The play age. Okay, the play age. Right. So play is very important. However, guilt. Take a look at guilt here. When not allowed to do things on their own, will develop guilt. They may come to believe that what you want to do is always wrong. Right? That's not good. Okay. So this is the time when the child's identity as a boy or as a girl is maximally affected. Children at this age begin to identify with the appropriate adult and the model or copy aspects of the adult's behavior. All right? Now, so this is what the Oedipus complex. That's basically a Freudian concept. That the boys usually are interested in the mother. Okay? Like Oedipus complex. Then the boy want to marry the mother. But then fearful of the father will kill me. Okay? Therefore, there is a rivalry between the boy and the father. So instead of what? Instead of getting what? Getting killed, the boy what? The boy will identify with the father. The father loves the mother, and if I what can identify with father, then what? I will love mother, mother loves father, therefore mother will love me. That type of thing. Okay. You should what? You should revisit your first year psychology, and you know the Oedipus complex, and then of course here there are other concepts associated with this crazy what complex. Okay. Anyway, girls, same. Girls what usually what interested, attracted what by the father, okay, attached to the father. So there's a rivalry between the mother and the girl. Now, so and what the girl psychologically wants to marry the father, but knowing that mother would annihilate her. So the girl would simply identify with the mother. Therefore, what daddy loves the mother, and I identify with mothers. Therefore, daddy will love me and mother will love me. That kind of thing. All right. So that's Oedipus complex. All right. Basically a totally Freudian idea. All right. And now, at this time here, to punish or ridicule such expression of inner feelings would render the child with strong feelings of guilt concerning the child's identity. So here I'm talking about what? Talking about the child's initiative. Okay, and Erickson, of course, called it's time to play age. Now, remember what the intuitive or pre-operational cognitive stage, what here Piaget, okay, children are full of fantasies, free associations, and they like to play. Remember, hysterically funny over the bathroom languages here, phallic stage. So Erickson warns that let's not move too far in the direction of early formal education for children during this age, okay, for fear that what it may serve to inhibit the child, reduce a sense of healthy purpose, and constrain the growth of creativity. So this is Erickson one, but let's not move too far into formal education. Let them play. Okay? Let them play because what? Because children at this age here, they are very creative, very intuitive, pre-operational, full of fantasy. Let them play. Play out their what? Fantasy, make-believe play, right? That type of thing. All right. 6 to 12 years old. So this is Piaget's, remember Piaget's 7-11 concrete operation. This is called the juvenile period by Erickson. And it coincides with what concrete operations, and then Freud's latency phase, when the child is least sexually preoccupied. No sex here, right? Like dormant. Okay? Sex is dormant. Now, remember in this case here, the child is very good with anything concrete, like what? Like anything with the rules. The child is good at learning all that. Okay? Playing games, anything with rules. So play by board games, sports, a musical instrument, all that. And remember my earlier example of intelligence. At this stage, when the child engages in sports, say baseball, within just 1 second, the child has to make so many decisions, and the child has to adjust the body so many times in order to achieve hitting the ball. Right? So this type of mental ability, no school, no classes, no textbook will teach. It's highly unlikely. So at this time, 6 to 12 or 7 to 11 years old, let the child learn concrete things. So let the child be diligent in doing that. Industry versus inferiority means difficult one in doing things. And therefore when now here the child's ability to cope with school, neighborhood, and home environment leads to a growing sense of competence. Right? So here, the child actually desires to do what? To do productive work. Okay. Here with the discovery of pleasure in perseverance and productivity, neighborhood, school, and peer interaction become increasingly important. All right. And they are interested in how things work because of concrete operation and how they ought to operate. So they learn concrete things. Right? So here, when the child senses that I'm able to cope with everything here, school, neighborhood, home environment, my friends, that type of thing. All these lead to a growing sense of competence. Okay, a general sense of personal mastery. All right, and then here, uh, and of course here the child wants recognition of progress. Okay, wants recognition of success. Now, difficulty in whatever I have just said will lead to a sense of inferiority. Okay? Lack of personal mastery, right? So that's not good. Okay, here an open classroom that's just doing instead of listening will benefit the child. Because at this stage, concrete operation, the cognitive development is at this stage here. Okay, so let's not go into abstract materials. Okay, everything has to be concrete. Okay, all right. Now, all in all, children at this age group begin to attend the school. They begin to develop many school-oriented skills. They also develop a general sense of personal mastery. Okay, like they could swim, they could ride a horse, they could sail the boat, they could ski, they could camp, they could fiddle, play guitar, play baseball, soccer, basketball, that type of thing. Now, according to Robert White, okay, famous psychologist, he said his notion of competence motivation is a universal attribute of humans and other species. It is an inborn desire or inborn drive to master the environment. So this is called the competence motivation. Okay, most of us, we have this drive. Okay, we have this drive. So personal and emotional development at this stage take place largely in schools. All right. So that's why school is of paramount importance. It is important for elementary schools to move away from rote learning and passive listening toward more open, active classrooms. Okay, that open classroom means what stress is doing instead of listening. The active school will do much to promote the students' sense of personal mastery. All right. So is what doing at this stage is one more important, right? It is more important. Other lessons, I will continue from this point on in the next video, right? Okay, it is now too long for the video. Okay.